Once upon a time in a land not so far away, there lived a beautiful white swan. She had the most exquisite feathers that shone like freshly fallen snow and sparkled with the brilliance of 1,000 stars. Her neck was long and graceful, her eyes were pools of liquid amber, and her voice could soothe the most troubled heart. But despite her beauty and gentle nature, she was terribly lonely. You see, when the little swan was just a cygnet, she lost her mother. Her father, who was the leader of their flock, had to take care of all of them, and he did his best. He taught them how to swim and fish, how to fly and protect themselves from predators, and he loved his children very much. But he was hardly ever around. His duties as the leader of the flock took most of his time, so the little swan grew up without knowing what it felt like to have her father's love and care. When she was old enough to leave the nest, the swan stayed by the lake where she hatched, refusing to go anywhere or talk to anyone. The other birds tried to befriend her, but she would just scream at them and chase them away. She didn't want to make friends. She only wanted her parents. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years, and the swan continued to live in her little world of sadness and solitude. Then one day, something incredible happened. The swan saw her reflection in the water, and for the first time, she realized that she wasn't ugly. Quite the opposite. She was one of the most beautiful creatures she had ever seen. At that moment, the swan made a decision to go out into the world and find someone as beautiful as her, because surely there were other swans out there as beautiful as she was, right? So the swan spread her wings and flew off to the horizon, determined to find her people. As she soared through the sky, she noticed a group of birds swimming in a nearby lake. They looked like ducks, but they weren't ducks. Their necks were too long, their bodies too elegant, and their feathers too brilliant. The swan swam closer and saw that there were 6 of them, 5 females and 1 male. They were beautiful, just like her. "Excuse me," said the swan timidly. Are you swans?" The 5 female swans looked at her for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Of course we're swans," one of them said. "Can't you tell by our looks?" "Oh, I don't know," the swan replied, embarrassed. "I haven't seen many swans in my life, so I thought maybe I was the only one." The 5 swans exchanged glances. They had never seen a swan like this before. Her feathers were whiter than snow and sparkled like diamonds. Her eyes were brighter than the sun, and her neck was more graceful than theirs. "Why are you different?" one of the swans asked. "Because I am an orphan," the swan replied sadly. "I lost my mother when I was a cygnet, and I grew up alone. That's why I look different. No one taught me how to be a swan." The swans were touched by her story and invited her to join them. For the first time in her life, the swan felt like she belonged somewhere. She spent her days swimming, fishing, and preening her feathers with her new friends, and her nights sleeping under the stars, feeling safe and loved. The male swan, who was the leader of the flock, taught her everything she needed to know about being a swan, and the other 4 female swans became her best friends. They played together, talked about their dreams, and shared their feelings with each other. The swan was so happy that she finally found her people. She couldn't remember a time when she had laughed so much or when she had felt so free. But their happiness didn't last for long. One day, while the swans were swimming in the lake, a group of humans arrived. They had heard rumors of a beautiful white swan living in the area, and they came to catch her and take her to the king. You see, the king's daughter was getting married soon, and he wanted a beautiful swan to pull her carriage on the wedding day. The swans panicked and tried to hide, but the humans were too quick. They grabbed the swan and tied her to the carriage. The other swans tried to fight back, but they were no match for the humans. Soon, the carriage was rolling down the road towards the castle, and the swan was too scared to move. When they arrived at the castle, the humans took the swan inside and showed her to the king. He was amazed by her beauty and told her that she would be the perfect swan for his daughter's wedding. The swan refused, of course, but the humans wouldn't listen. They dragged her away before she could say a word. The swan was taken to a small room with bars on the window. She was too scared to do anything, so she just sat down on the floor and waited for her fate to be decided. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up and saw the 5 swans entering the room. "We came to rescue you," one of them said. "How can we do that? These humans are too strong," the swan replied. "They won't let us leave." "Don't worry," another swan said. "We have a plan. We may not be able to defeat the humans with our beaks and claws, but we can use our brains." And with that, the swans started talking in a language the human didn't understand. It was a language that only swans could speak. A language that had been passed down to them from their ancestors. A language that was full of magic and power. As the swans spoke, the bars on the window started to shake. Then, to everyone's amazement, they started to disappear. In a few moments, the window was wide open, and the swans were free to leave. They quickly flew away, with the white swan following closely behind. When they reached the lake, the swans took off into the sky and disappeared into the sunset, leaving the humans behind, confused and angry. From that day on, the swans lived happily in their little corner of paradise, safe from the prying eyes and greedy hands of humans. They continued to swim, fish, and preen their feathers together, and their laughter echoed over the lake, bringing joy to all who heard it. The white swan never forgot her friends who saved her life, and every night before going to sleep, she snuggled up to them, feeling grateful and loved. She had gone from being an orphaned cygnet, who knew nothing about the world, to being a brave and noble swan, who was respected by her people, and she knew that none of this would have been possible without her friends. The moral of the story is that everyone belongs somewhere. If you feel like you don't belong, keep looking. Your place is out there waiting for you. All you need to do is keep your head up, your heart open, and your wings strong. You will find your people someday.